From the University of Nebraska at Omaha, this is NCITE Insights. I'm your host, Erin Grace. Well, welcome to NCITE Insights. I'm so excited to sit here today with two rising stars. We have Alexis D'Amato and Emma Theobald, and they are both graduate students at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, and they're both doing awesome things for NCITE. And we've got a lot of ground to cover, and so I'm going to have each of them tell you a little bit about who they are, why they're studying. We'll start with Alexis, and then we'll get into the meat of the program, which has to do about conferences and presenting. So, Alexis.
I'm Alexis D'Amato. I'm a fourth-year PhD student in the Industrial and Organizational Psychology program. I work under Sam Hunter, and I research malevolent creativity, idea generation, and we're starting to look at idea evaluation of malevolently creative ideas. And then I also research creative leaders. So, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Emma?
And my name's Emma Theobald. I'm also Dr. Hunter's student. I'm also studying industrial organizational psychology, and I'm only my second year though, so I'm still working on the master's part of it, but hoping to continue on and get my PhD as well. And my research interest also, I'm malevolent creativity. It's what I'm doing my thesis on, is malevolent creativity idea generation within like red teams. But I also have other research interests like occupational health psychology and just work stress and stuff like that. So.
I know nothing of the kind of work stress. Okay, so it's interesting. You both have in common your field, IO Psych, and obviously Dr. Hunter. And so the reason the two of you are here is because you're fresh off the SIOP conference. So Emma, why don't you start? Tell us about what does SIOP stand for, and give us a sketch of the conference, like how many days and people and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so SIOP is the Society of Industrial and Organizational Psychology. And the SIOP is across, it goes from Wednesday to Saturday. Wednesdays, there's a lot of like job fair stuff, job postings, a lot of like early career workshops and stuff. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday is a lot of like speakers panels and poster sessions. And for this past SIOP, it was in Denver, Colorado, which is a great place to have it. The convention center was amazing and everything. But this is only my second year going, and it's just a great experience. Every single year, I feel like I'm learning so much just by sitting there and listening. And you get to talk to a lot of people, and it kind of reinvigorates your like love for IO psychology. So sometimes if you're feeling burnt out or something, and then going and hearing about like cutting edge research that's not out yet. So yeah.
And you, we're going to stick with you for just a second. So Alexis, don't go anywhere. We're going to come to you, but tell me about, did you do a poster there, or what you did a presentation?
I did a poster on the Friday morning. It was within a poster session of decision making in groups. And I actually presented NCITE research that Alexis is also on. So it was like a group effort. But yeah, the poster sessions are usually, they're in a big room with a bunch of other students that are presenting. It's usually graduate students that are presenting posters, but it's a really great way to kind of learn about your speaking skills in the sense that people are coming by. They might be there for 30 seconds. They might sit there and let you talk to them for like 5 minutes, but you kind of have to like work the room a little bit.
Oh, so, yeah. And tell us a little bit more about the poster or the idea behind it.
Yeah, so the poster was on, it was the similarity attraction principle and looking at that within malevolent creativity idea generation. And it was a part of a 2-study effort. The first study I was there for, the second study was before my time. But we found some interesting findings. I don't know if you want me to talk about the findings that we found, or...
Well, sure. Give us a couple findings.
Yeah, so we found that that physical dissimilarity and also in-group affinity, so the belief that you believe the in-group has the similar attitudes to you, actually enhanced malevolence and malevolent creativity idea generation, so like the harm, and also originality, so like the novelty of it. And it was really interesting, and this is my second year, but it was actually one of the first tasks I did when I came to NCITE as a first year, was to create these like AI avatars for the methods of the study. And now I got to present it in my second year. So it's kind of like a full circle.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, good for you. Okay. Well, we want to get back to that subject. Alexis, tell me about your experience at SIOP and how many years you've been going and what you did there.
This was my fourth year. And my first year was the year right after COVID. So it was much smaller, and not a lot of people were there, but now I feel like it's a little bit more lively, and more people are coming, and they're not afraid to like give you a big hug and things. And after 4 years of going, I like recognize people now. So I would be on my way to a session and run into someone that I met last year, and then end up talking to them for so long that I would miss like the first half of the session or something. So that was really nice, the networking. Yeah.
And you did a panel, is that right?
A symposium.
Okay.
Yeah. So Sam and I co-chaired it. So I like introduced the topic, and then there were 4 presentations, and one of the presentations was me, and then 2 were former NCITE researchers, and then the 4th was from NASA, and she was amazing. She was the whole reason I put together the symposium. I just wanted to hear her talk.
What was the symposium subject?
It was about novel threats, so anticipating and evaluating threats that are original, that haven't been done before, so there's no baseline in order to detect and prevent them. So some of the research was about sharing threats that could potentially happen with a group of like your team, and seeing how psychological safety can play into your willingness to bring something maybe that's unconventional or weird, or something that you might be afraid you're getting judged for, thinking that this is a threat that should be discussed and evaluated. My research for that was related to forecasting, which is a cognitive activity within idea evaluation, where you're predicting the potential consequences or outcomes of implementing an idea. My findings were not what I was hoping. So we actually looked at a lot of the qualitative data and pulled out some potential constraints in evaluating novel threats for future research.
Give us an example of a novel threat.
Oh, so the woman from NASA, she had the most perfect example, so I'll tell you hers. There was a helmet, and they were doing like a testing. So they were in space, and they're attached to a rope, so they can get back to the shuttle, I believe it's called.
So they're doing a spacewalk. They're literally out. Okay.
Yes, yeah, and it's just for them to test, and then they'll come back and things. And the one astronaut was saying that he was feeling moisture in his helmet, which I didn't know this. I learned this, that when there's any type of moisture in your helmet, it clings to you because something with the atmosphere and within the helmet's pressure. So it started clinging to his ears. He couldn't hear anything. Started clinging to his eyes. He couldn't see anything. And then eventually his nose and his mouth, so then he wouldn't be able to breathe. So without being able to hear or see anything, he was just using the rope to get back to the shuttle. And they thought that it was just his drink pack initially. So then he chugged his whole drink pack, and he was still getting more water. It was accumulating. And when they did a further investigation, they're based in Houston. So Houston's water is very hard. So there was a mineral buildup on one of the spouts, and that was leaking water into his helmet. So that's something that they wouldn't have prepared for, or even known that could have happened. So it was novel, and then it was a threat because it could have harmed their astronauts. So yeah, that was her example, which was wonderful.
That's a really cool example. And it makes me think of novel threats in all other contexts, right? I mean, I think of the underwear bomber or the shoe bomber. I mean, certainly like the 9/11 attack, which predates you two, is an example of a novel threat in a way they use in the simplicity. So sometimes when you think of novelty, I think you think of something like that has never been invented yet, but it could be just mineral water from Houston, or a box cutter in the case of 9/11, right? It's just something that you're not prepared for. I love that you two are IO Psych specialists, but that you really are specializing in a social science, and yet you're so adept at technology. For instance, you've done demos. Emma's going to do a demo for us this week, and we have the Board of Regents come visit. What draws you to technology as somebody who studies how people think? Both of you can answer that.
I'll let Emma go first. She has a better answer.
Okay. Let me think of one. I think within industrial organizational psychology, especially within like the past 5 years with artificial intelligence, having, first and foremost, being able to study the technology with people who are specialized in like innovation in technology, it just adds such an edge to like my own career. because people see like AI on my like CV or resume.
Sure.
And that's just it's a great advantage, but also it's being integrated. I think it's like the Revolution 4.0 or Industrial Revolution 4.0, I think is what they're calling it. But it's going to be integrated in everything, including work. Like and companies also love technological innovations as well. And you can see it every year how it's being more and more integrated. So being able to work with technology, it's a novel opportunity, but it also like has a lot of ties to what industrial organizational psychology is. And it's a unique perspective too, because we're thinking about work, but we're also thinking about how people are using these technologies rather than just trying to develop them.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of get the best of both worlds because we get the expertise from other people, which we don't have, but then we get to just do like, what are the outcomes of the application of these technologies? So it's also just really cool to be able to work with all the tech and everything.
It is very cool to watch you work with the tech and everything. As a Gen Xer, we're kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out of tech. How about you, Alexis? What?
I definitely agree with some things that Emma said. Going into grad school, definitely did not see this as my path. And I was a little resistant when Sam first introduced this research to me. I was like, oh no, like what are these goggles that you're making me wear? Yes. But definitely the AI stuff, I can see how the integration with the creative problem solving process, it just makes us understand the cognitive activities a lot better. People aren't generating ideas and evaluating ideas in a vacuum just with themselves. Even prior to all this new technology, they were using the internet, and this is just the newest version. So in order to understand those, we have to partner with people like Joel and Jack. And the research is amazing. I'm very grateful for it, even though I was resistant at first. But
and so you mentioned Joel Elson, PhD, is our IT innovation professor here. Jack Rigg, his student, both with an IT background. But I don't know if you know that. I think Joel was a psychology major as an undergrad. So I don't think that blend is that unusual anymore. Tech is so integrated in our lives. I wonder if you two could also address the IO part of psychology. I think most people understand what psychology is and why you would study it and how people tick, but the IO was new to me when I came to NCITE. I hadn't ever really heard of that or knew what that was. And so I wonder if you could each talk about what drew you to industrial organizational psychology versus straight up.
Well, my background is a little different than other IOs. So I was a business major as my undergrad in marketing and management. And then I went and got an MBA. But through that time, I was in Gina's lab prior to NCITE. So I saw the research questions and the types of problems that an IO psychologist was interested in. And it just goes so much deeper than what I was learning as a business student. And I really wanted to know about like the human interactions at work and the cognitive processes of making decisions in order to see these bigger goals that business students focus on. But there's like these little things in IO psychology that also focus on the broader goals. So not to say one is better, they work very well together, but the goals are a little different from the broadness of a business school worried about like profit and
revenue,
effectiveness, and then IO psychologists about job satisfaction and employee well-being and how those two can marry.
Good answer. Okay, my daughter is a freshman business student. I'm going to have to tell her she has to take your path and get a graduate degree in IO Psych. What about you, Emma?
Yeah, so in undergrad, I think I initially was like going like medical field or something like that. And then I decided after taking a couple chemistry classes, I was like, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. I don't know if I can go through 8 years of this. And then I switched to like clinical psychology. And after doing a little bit of research into that field, I was like, I don't know if this is like the best fit for me. And I think my experience is similar to some other people's where it was just mentioned, like IO psychology is mentioned in passing in like a textbook. And I was like, wait a second. Like that is actually really interesting to me because people spend a third of their lives at work.
Right.
You know, they spend at least 40 hours a week. And I was thinking, I'm like, I like the more applied sense where it's not just like one person that I'm talking to. I feel like it's something you could actually make a significant change in someone's life where they're spending that much amount of time, where they can maybe actually enjoy working, and it's not something they like dread going to work every day. It's something that's more interactive, which kind of led me to IO psychology, but also like employee well-being within IO psychology.
So you're employee well-being, but then you get to study how bad people think and tick and act, right? What's so cool is just hearing in your two stories the diversity of your backgrounds and your interests, even when you leave this place. So, stopping there for a second, what do you want to be when you grow up? You're closer because you're almost done. One more year.
I want to be a professor.
Okay.
Yes. So do research, teach classes. Serve
Great.
the university, yeah.
Okay, Dr. D'Amato, I like it.
Yes.
Nice alliterative effect. What about you?
I always joke with Sam or Dr. Hunter, I always joke that I want to go into industry for 20 years and then go into academia.
Oh, okay.
It's like my career trajectory is what I would hope for. But right now I'm kind of open to anything, honestly. I usually say that like whatever I want to end up being within industry right now is just either an organization that like values well-being and creativity, or an organization just has like outcomes that I believe in, so that the organizational goal is all going towards something that's good for like humanity and just actually values that as well. So which is a lot of like counterterrorism, which is really nice to do this research, because sometimes research and practice, it's kind of hard to connect the two at times. But with this, it's like there's actual impact. Like we're doing research to help aid decisions that are like higher up at like DHS and everything. That's really valuable. So it helps you like stay connected to the work. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you told me that, because I think about at NCITE we have IO Psych. So we've been talking a lot about Sam, and any regular on the show knows Dr. Sam Hunter. He's about to get the Saturday Night Live jacket because he's been on a lot, because he has a lot to offer. And his vein of IO Psych is different than, say, Dr. Matt Allen's vein, who is really trying to use those skills to build up NCITE organizationally, which is then different than Dr. Gina Ligon's vein, which is looking at how leaders and organizations, terrorist ones in her case, how they act. And so to me, as an observer, it's been so interesting to see your field and the broadness within that field about what you might want to do. And so taking it back to SIOP, what did you see there at the conference that kind of reflected the vastness of the IO field?
Oh, there was actually a panel about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you're in Grace Bachelor's degree. I just want to say that for the record. Okay.
Aris, who is an NCITE researcher, she was the chair, and then Matt Allen was one of the panelists.
Okay.
And they're just talking about IO psychology in like unconventional fields. So there was someone discussing veterans relations, someone else talking about like the medical field, someone else talking about the National Basketball Association, and then there were two panelists who are involved with NCITE. So I think the field as a whole is open to IO being applied to different fields, to different sets of problems.
Yeah.
And I think that really embraces counterterrorism as kind of like an interesting application of our knowledge and the science behind IO.
Yeah, because I could see the subject of counterterrorism not being the skunk at the garden party, but that is probably again a vein that you don't see a lot of at SIOP. And so that NCITE can have a heavy presence there. So Emma, for someone like you, I mean, she's an OG going to this conference. This is your second year. So are you able to see like career paths for yourself that does the conference kind of help you with that, like envision like where you want to be? I know you said industry generally and something that agrees with your values, but when you go there, do you feel like you're making connections or you're getting just ideas about your own future?
Yeah, I guess like comparing the first experience I had to the second, when I went my first year, which was in Chicago, it was very much like everything I went to, I was like, this is so exciting. Oh my God, like all these new like research, I hadn't thought about this, hadn't thought about that. And this time going in, it's more of like kind of like hearing things and be like, I don't want to do that. So the focus is happening a little bit more. And I think that's pretty valuable as well, because people say that about internships too. Like, just do as like random internships or whatever, just to see what you don't want to do for the rest of your career.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah, so I think that this time around, it kind of had me focus in a little bit more, and also the counterterrorism aspect of like the IO application. Anytime I said that's what the research I do, people are like they're so excited to hear about it. Like, I was walking into one panel that was comparing organizational culture to cults, and one of the panelists like came up and asked me, he's like, why do you want to come to this like talk? And I was like, oh, I work in counterterrorism research, so I thought there might be like some ties and everything. And like 2 other people were like, what? You work in counterterrorism research? So I think it's also showing me like how unique it is, and how people find it like really like unique and cool. So I'm like very lucky to be in this position too. So.
Well, in that regard, how has working at NCITE shaped your thinking about the work that you're doing? So I heard you say that your research kind of has some resonance. It isn't just going somewhere that you don't know where it's going to go. It's actually going to go help somebody. But how has it even shaped your own refining of your career path? Alexis, starting with you.
Oh, that's a good question. I definitely would say the practical implications of our research has really shaped the types of questions I then ask, because so much of academic research can just stay within that ivory tower. And so when I'm thinking about future research that I'll do when I'm a professor, or even just for my dissertation, I'm always asking, like, why does this matter? Who cares about this? What will this help? And I also enjoy, like, when I talk to my family members who they work in the workplace, or they work jobs, that I can almost understand the problems that they're going through, and then find patterns in the other people that I talk to about problems that occur in the workplace, and then that can kind of shape research. So IO is very applied, and I think that's what is like super exciting about it, that you think about problems, and then you can implement change based on your research, or you can hear about like patterns that are happening and then build research studies based on that.
So there'd be a lot of reward in thinking that what you're doing can have an effect right there. I mean, it is funny for me to hear the IOs on our team. Some situation has happened and they go right to like IO jargon. You all would know what it all means. Well, that is such and such a type of leader, and this is such a type of group. And of course that's normal behavior in these contexts, And so that would be kind of fun to see those patterns. What about you, Emma? What do you think?
I think for me, with like the research we do at NCITE, it really has shown me how the old mixed in with the new can like have such a like wholeheartedly, I guess, or holistic output. So like we do really novel research. Like, there's not that many researchers that are studying malevolent creativity in general. And then also with like the application of AI in the counterterrorism field, it's very unique, but then we're still pulling from like these old theories that are from like the 1950s and stuff. So it's like that combination, and then that the output is like this strengthened piece, because trends happen years over years. Innovation has been occurring as long as humans have been alive, even before that with, I don't know, animals or whatever. But it's really just, it's nice to see that process and also know how it helps the end product. Because sometimes you're learning about these like really old theories and you're like, how does this apply to like AI now? And it's like, it does, because everything follows patterns and follows different like trajectories.
So before Ben gives us the high sign that we've got to wrap up, picture a college freshman. Picture my daughter. You don't know her, but her name is Leah, and she's a freshman. She's a freshman business student. What advice do you give to a college undergrad about what grad school has to offer in any field? You could make a sales pitch for IO, which I think you both effectively have done. I now want to go to grad school and study that. But what would you tell Leah about her future as an 18-year-old college student?
Oh my goodness, I don't know. Grad school definitely makes you challenge everything you learned in undergrad, because you're learning a different way to think about things, and theory isn't always like leadership. For example, there are a ton of leadership theories. There's a ton of overlap in those because leadership is about behaviors. But when you're in undergrad, you're only thinking about those behaviors. But then in grad school, it just makes you like challenge all of those things, because you're like, is it that theory? Is it that theory? Why would it be that theory? What are the followers doing? Like, you just ask so many questions, and then it gets muddy. But it's so it's exciting, yeah, to challenge everything you learned in undergrad.
Okay. All right. Well, that'll be catnip for her. What do you think?
I think along the same vein of graduate school really makes you think about the why of everything. Like, as undergrad, I wasn't an undergraduate business student, but I feel like undergrad is about what should you do when you're in this situation. It's a lot of like training, and then grad school is like, why am I doing that, and like, how can I back it up? So a lot of what we do is like why, and then it gets really muddy when you start looking at the why. But then you actually like know, like, these are the reasons that we chose X, Y, or Z, and there's like pros and cons to every decision, but you can back all of that up. And it really, like, my brain hurts almost every single day, but I have learned so much in like the 2 years that I've been here, and
good.
I want to learn more and more. So it really, like, the lifelong learner aspect of it too, it really trains you on that, where you just never want to stop like getting new information. So
that definitely appeals to me. My Gallup strengths are input and learning. So maybe this is really a call for me to go back to graduate school. I think I'd be too old, but maybe they'd make room. Any last words before we close? We covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, we did.
I would just say, like, if any undergraduate students who are thinking about industrial organizational psychology, it's a great field to get into. And I think it's also still, compared to other psychology fields, pretty young. So we're still learning about where it can be applied, like in the counterterrorism. So I would just urge any psychology undergrads, business undergrads, it's a great field to get into. So
I agree with that. Yeah.
Well, and maybe they'll have you for a professor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because you're so close, one more year.
I know. Yeah. Go in the job market this year.
Okay. Well, gosh, that is awesome. Well, thanks a lot for sticking with us, audience. We have Emma Theobald and we have Alexis D'Amato, both shining stars at the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
This series is produced by Ben Badafarano, Erin Grace, Scott Jordan, and Blake Ersch. Thank you for joining us for another episode of NCITE Insights. The National Counterterrorism, Innovation, Technology, and Education Center, or NCITE, is an academic center of excellence for the Department of Homeland Security. Looking to find out more? Check out our website at ncite.unomaha.edu or email us at ncite@unomaha.edu.